Hi guys, sorry, I'm just pulling my pants off, baby guts. Okay, let's get started. Sorry, a bit uncomfortable with some of you there. Okay. Have you ever talked about wanting to do something, but given the opportunity, you don't actually go through with it? Now, it could be down to a mental or physical challenge. It could be the lack of confidence. Or it could just be the way that you view the world. Well, I have personally ticked off all of those things. That was the old me. This is me now. Hi everyone, I'm Jedrek and I'm Singapore's only female race car driver. But I've also worked in the media for about 12 years, and out of 7 of those, I've worked as an MC and as a presenter and a writer. Now, a decade ago, as a struggling and really broke MC, if you had told me that one day I would work as a commentator at the Formula One, that I would own a go-kart circuit, that I would marry a race car driver, become a race car driver, pop out 2 kids, and then try and make a comeback, I would have thought that was the biggest joke of the year. Now, I didn't have any particular interest in motorsport. I didn't even get my driving license to 2010. I was terrible, yeah, I know. I was terrible when it came to teamwork. I've always played individual sport, so it was always just me against a whole bunch of other competitive people, and I've always worked solo. And I didn't know anything about the physics and the science of racing. So how the hell did I get here? Well, now, there have been moments in my life where there's been plenty of failures. But I have seen every failure exponentially leading me to my terms of success. In fact, I have seen all of this in my own form of religion. Now, I'm not a religious person or spiritual, but it has been the religion of motorsport. And it has given me, I suppose, the 10 commandments of how to live life. And in this, I'm going to share with you a couple of bumper stickers of motorsport on what I've done to lead my life. Now, you've got to go slower to go faster. On a racetrack, they say the fastest way around the racetrack is that when you enter a turn, you've got to go slower to have a faster exit. Now, in life, this is also the same thing. If you enter a little bit too fast to the turn, you aren't able to turn. And this is because you aren't able to react fast enough, in which case, then, you crash out. In real-life terms, you make a bad decision. So in 2012, this was my very first lesson. I had moved away for 3 years to Australia. I moved away with my then boyfriend. I thought I was getting married, having kids. I was going to settle down. My life came crashing down very unexpectedly because he broke up with me. And, let's just say I had sold everything to move away, and I sold everything to come back again. I was feeling really defeated, and mostly because I felt ashamed and embarrassed about where I was at that point of time. And I was in a pretty much place where I had to rush to get back to some kind of lifestyle. I thought to myself, I'm a 30-year-old female. I have no job. I have no career. I don't even have anywhere to live. And some of the best advice that I'd ever received, surprisingly enough, was from my father. And he said to me, do nothing. I was like, what do you mean, do nothing? But what he actually meant was to take life a little bit slower and figure out what you want to do. Now, this is exactly what I did over the next few months. I took time to figure out, did I want to go back into the media career? Yes, I did. So what I did is I contacted a couple of old contacts that I had. I even went back to school for the next few months to go study my personal trainer certificate, because why not? Opportunities then started opening up once I got my name and put myself out there. And I got my first real job in motorsport. It was commentating for the Singapore Karting Championship. Now, I had no idea how to commentate, but I took the job anyway because I needed money. So what I did, and I like to think it was a smart way of doing it, is that I went to go and join a couple of the karting leagues. I then learned about who was involved in those leagues, the people who were driving. I learned how to drive a kart, and then I was able to talk about it. And I just want to put it out there that I actually won quite a few of those karting leagues. And I'm not quite sure whether I was actually good or that my competitors sucked. But whatever it is, it made me feel really good. So in November 2013, I put my thoughts into actions, and I actually got in a car, because I thought, hey, if I can drive a car, I can drive a car. Not so easy. Well, I thought to myself, you know what, 2014 is going to be a clean slate. I am going to do all the things that I've never dared to do before. I'm going to face my fears. I am, well, essentially, I have a second chance at doing this. Now, if you don't ask for it, you won't get it. A lot of times, people think that when you stand on a podium and you win a race or win a championship, that sponsors will come knocking, finances will flow through, and the contracts are signed. This doesn't happen in motorsport. You've got to go and put yourself out there and knock on those doors. So when it started for me, I knew that I didn't have the finances to even put one tire out on circuit. It's an expensive sport. It's really expensive. They say the fastest way to become a millionaire in racing is to start as a billionaire. Yeah, a lot of people go broke in this industry. So I had to do the thing which I feared the most. That was to ask people for money. Oh, it's really hard until this day, but it gets easier. Any sponsors out here? P&G? Yeah, so going back to that. So I had to ask people for money, and I had to sell myself. I also found out that you had to put a thing called a deck together. And you had to go and make meetings with heads of companies, because they were the ones that could sign off on the finances the fastest. And you had to put a marketing plan out there. So it was a very steep learning curve. But after 3 months, and I could say only 3 months, I actually put a package together, and I found the finances for an entire season for 2014. When I first started, I had clammy, cold hands going into these meetings. I would stutter my way through. But all I knew is that if I asked for something, I may receive it. But if I didn't ask at all, I wouldn't receive it at all. You can't control the factors around you. Now, there's so many external factors on a racetrack. We're talking about the track conditions, we're talking about the hardware, we're talking about the weather, your competitors, a couple of haters. And the hard thing about it is that these external factors, you can't worry about them. But what can you control? Does anyone know? Yes, that's correct. You can control yourself. You can control the time, the dedication, the commitment, the education that you put into it. So that is exactly what I did. I put in all that time on simulator training. I spent all my time going overseas on the racing and going away and putting myself through every job that would make me learn. If you see the statistics up there, I was actually quite curious this last week how many times I traveled between 2014 and 16, which was when I was doing my first 3 years of racing. I was in Malaysia 53 times, 171 days. which is a lot of time away. In fact, in 2014 alone, I was away for 21 days. I'm not going to put the hours because the hours itself is just crazy. You can see the other times and the other countries, China and all the other ad hoc. These are times that I went away for racing and for work. So I spent a lot of time overseas. Going back to that, this all came down to my first taste of success because I found myself one day on the podium in second position at the Malaysia Formula One Grand Prix support race. Now, a real magic moment for me. On top of that, which was an additional point, out of 48 cars, I was the first and only female to have ever made it in my category and in my series. So, very magical, as I said. Communication is everything. Well, a lot of people think that the race driver is the star of the show. Now, the fact is, they have an entire team behind them. Team managers, they've got their engineers, their mechanics, they've got, some people have got physiotherapists, a marketing team, and of course, you've got your sponsors and your clients, very important. Moving along with that, a lot of the times, you have to get along with your team. In fact, actually, sorry, you have to get along all the time, no matter your emotions. And with that, you spend 16 hours a day in a garage. You spend breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so it'd really suck if you didn't get along with them. Now, I made a very rookie mistake at the beginning of my racing because the team essentially helps you decide whether you win or lose a race or a championship. And when I had a bad day in a car, I would storm out the car, and for 6 hours, I wouldn't talk to anybody. And this was really bad behavior for me because when you get out of a race car, you need to give immediate feedback about how the car felt. You need to tell them what you did wrong or right in the car. It was essential for them to learn more about the car so they could set it up again for you. With this communication, of course, it got a lot easier throughout the years. And in my personal life, it helped me with my business because I work with my husband. We see each other 24 hours a day. And I realized that when the communication starts, the arguing stops. Now, the data never lies. The truth hurts because the data never lies. Now, in a car, you have multiple sensors around the car. So any movement that you make, the data is received from the car, and then you download it, and the engineer can see it. So you can lie to everyone around you about what you did, but you can't lie to yourself. Now, this has been a very humbling experience for me because I used to search for an entire year for 0.3 of a second. That's barely a blink in the real life. I spent the 1 year doing that because I hit a plateau, and then I found it. In fact, I found a whole second, which is amazing when it comes to the racetrack because it means a big difference of where you sit in a qualifying. The fact is about data, though, is that it helps you learn to be objective about your decisions and not be subjective. It taught me that I need to take emotions out of it. So the lesson learned, keep it factual. Cruise and collect. A lot of the times people think to win a championship, you need to be a winner and win the race. But that's not true. There are a lot of times that you can sit back and be third, fourth, and fifth, and you actually collect the championship points, and these all accumulate up to winning the championship. And most of the time with this is because people didn't start a race, they didn't finish, and this happens in all the races. So, biggest thing to learn from this is be flexible about change and about your goals, because you need to pick your battles. Panic slowly. I don't know why people are laughing. Now, you need to make sure that you don't mix your emotions into your reactions. People think, and this is another myth of race drivers, that they're aggressive and they make impassioned decisions and they yank the wheel. They are the opposite of that. In fact, they make precise and calculated decisions. They very much have the finesse of a ballet dancer. They are smooth and they make small movements. Now, with panicking slowly, I guess the one thing that I can say about this is that you just have to take it back a notch. And in all decisions that you make, take a breath. Winning is the only way. Now, when I say winning, what I really mean is that failure has never been an option for me. So whether I take up a challenge and I go over, in, around, or through that, I always make sure that I get there. In 2015, my husband and myself decided that we would start a go-kart business. And we'd opened a previous one before. We hired a manager who had worked in our last business. We paid him we paid him above the industry rate. He knew how to operate the go-kart track, and we paid him that because we were away a lot of the time, so he had to do all the work. Now, it was during a race weekend. In fact, it was my race weekend, just before a race. We received a call from him that he had misplaced or he had overspent a six-figure sum of money, which is a crazy amount. He also had not put in all the applications for the licenses that we needed to open the go-kart circuit in 1 month's time. And these applications take weeks to go through. Now, we got back to Singapore, and of course, we didn't have a GM anymore because he left or we fired him, whichever way, he was gone. And we sat on our balcony and looked through 1 year's worth of work planning to get this go-kart circuit open in a month. And to say that we didn't have grit, well, let's just say that that was the moment that we had it. We compiled that into 1 week. And in 3 days, we actually put out a 200-page operations manual to get this go-kart circuit open. 4 years later, we're still running this go-kart circuit, so I can say that we won that battle. Lastly, fake it till you make it. Why not? Well, please have a plan when you do that first. I don't know if you remember, if you've ever watched that movie about Leo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can. Well, that was essentially me. Now, if people don't know, he faked it through a lot of careers to run away from authorities, except I'm not running away from anyone. I started my career commentating, and it's really difficult to commentate about something that you don't know about. So in the beginning, what I did is I immersed myself into every conversation that there was about motorsport because I didn't know about it. I allowed myself to be constantly corrected by all my peers on the lingo that was used because, I made mistakes all the time. And every time there was a race, I would go down into the pit lane before the race, and I would talk to the drivers. I would talk to the engineers, I talked to the scrutineers, and I would write down everything that they said, and I would quote and regurgitate it. And that made me sound like I could walk the walk and talk the talk. And of course, it's gotten easier over the years because it's like the gossip column for me. It's like Daily Mail, the TMZ. So it's just gotten easier until I knew how to speak about it all the time. Now, the one thing that I've learned over all my years in motorsport, the 7 years, is that when it comes down to it, when the visors go down and those red lights go out, everybody has the same goal. That is to get to the checkered flag. Now, I just want to point out something because there's an ode to my husband, and he bought me this T-shirt last week. Do or do not, he's not here. Do or do not, there is no try. And this pretty much sums up how I live my life. Thank you.